Dr. Wood authored the book Miracles in Minutes, and the title of this video is Don't Get Hooked. Everybody wants love. Everybody wants to have a eudaimonia, which is a great life. You know, there's the pleasurable life, hedonic life, sex and drugs and rock and roll. And that doesn't end so well. The people get addicted to heroin at the end of it. It feels good on the front end, but on the back end, your life doesn't work out. What causes true happiness is meaning. As Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning and Logos Therapy, which he founded after he exited the concentration camps of Nazi Germany as a Jew. He learned something while he was there, and that even in suffering, suffering ends when you can find meaning in the suffering. So I bring that up because it's very important, because we're going to talk about the hook, and a lot of people think everybody wants love, but you're not usually in love, you're in codependency. And codependency is I'll take care of you and you take care of me. And a lot of parents today think that you know, since they're so busy at work, what they'll do is they'll make it up to their kids. They'll give them everything that they want. And you create a series of entitlement. And if you Google entitlement and happiness, they don't go together. Entitlement and misery go together. Very miserable. And the bad news is the relationships don't work. So then they don't have love in their lives. That's a really bad idea. That trying to buy your kids love through bribery, through ice cream, through Disneyland trips, through cars and cash and prizes, that doesn't equal love at all. As the Bible says, you can't love both God and money. It's not the money is evil, it's the love of money, God's love. So when people chase money, what they're not really chasing money is they're chasing security. They're trying to make themselves feel better about themselves, and that you are what you do, you are what you have, therefore you're worthy of love. And then what somebody does is come along, they just pick the fruit right off of you, and you have a parasite eating off of you. That's why a lot of rich people can't find happiness. Rock stars and movie stars, or millionaires, they don't know if the people that are around them love them, or they just want the money, you know, or the fame, or the status. Hey, look who I'm friends with, you know, Pierce Brosnan or some movie star. So anyway, let's get into the conundrum that's very popular today. There's a victim. We don't have victim. Victimhood has gotten so bad that we now have psychologists had to make up a new word for it called competitive victimhood. Who's the most oppressed of the oppressed in the world? And some of the old groups are starting to get left out, like black people. But victimhood's a terrible thing to espouse anyway. I have 3 daughters, and the feminist movement that women are victims, and who's to blame? You can't have a victim if you don't have a villain. You know, I guess feminism is the hero in the story. So that's what it looks like. It's called the Cartman drama cycle. There's a victim, there's a villain, and there's a hero. And on this is called the loser's triangle. Loser's triangle. Guess who loses? Everybody loses in that triangle, because what's on it is there's hurt, there's anger, there's frustration. And the victim has something called learned helplessness. I can't help myself. It happened to me. That's called a loss of agency. So there's a loss of hope. And that's called learned helplessness. And that's also called depression. And anxiety. You really want to be a victim? If you like anxiety, if you like depression, if you like bitterness, and that bitter. So feminism teaches women that women are victims. Oh, poor little Pookie Bear. And that men did it. Oh, now. Let me know how that works out for you. Because then they go to gender class studies and they fill their head full of bullshit, and they just keep running the narrative. And look, here's more reasons how they've been oppressed. And if you keep listening to that stuff, it's like filling your head up with toxin. So then you anger becomes bitterness, and it makes you ugly. Ugly women. Victims are ugly. Our human brains are wired to avoid needy people, and victims are needy people. They're in constant need. They waller in self-pity. If you waller in self-pity, you waller in depression. That's a horrible story. The way you get out is through agency, and agencies you take responsibility, and you have to learn forgiveness. And forgiveness is a high-level skill. Like, our natural instinct is not to forgive. Our natural instinct is, you hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to get you back, revenge. And as I think Gandhi said, if there's an eye for an eye, the whole world will be blind. And so this is the problem. And so if you're a guy, stop being a freaking white knight. And a lot, if you're trying to help people, you got there's a real skill to helping people. You don't enable people. You don't. Your kid's struggling in math, metaphorically speaking. Your kid's struggling in math. You don't do their math homework for them. Oh, it's easier that way. I know it's easier that you do the math homework for them. They hand it in. They get an A because maybe you have a PhD in mathematics, but it's not the kid's A. It's your A. There's trophies for nothing right there. You didn't help your kid at all. You sent messages like "I don't believe in you," that you're stupid. Even you didn't say it overtly. You said it in your actions that you're claiming that people are stupid. Just like women, you don't. I mean, women need to allow themselves for men to be in their world, but at the same time, that they can't use blame and blame shifting for when they have a problem, that they blame their husband, they blame men for their problems. They're not being responsible for their own mind. And if you don't take control of your mind, you're a disaster. Your relationships won't work. It turns into destructive. So you're going to die loveless. Is that what you want? You want to die loveless? You want to die without happiness and joy? Do you want to die in anxiety and depression? And by the way, the pills don't work because depression, Prozac's supposed to cure it. But in 2017, depression is the number one cause of disability in the world. People are on more drugs than ever before, and the depression rates are up. Studies show that actually the pills make it worse. So you can look at that. You can look at Kelly Brogan, Brogan, YouTube, the Joe Rogan Experience, Psych Meds, Joe Rogan, and see what shows up. And you'll see some research pop up. Anatomy of an Epidemic, Robert Whitaker talks about that he looked at the empirical evidence of some of the psych meds. I'm not saying they don't work for some people, but for a lot of people it makes it worse. That's why some of them have a black box warning, because it creates suicide or homicide, kill people. 233% increase, 223% increased risk. I got that from Kelly Brogan. I believe she got it from Anatomy of Epidemic, Robert Whitaker. So this is what the studies show. So there is no easy way out of this stuff. It's the only way out of any problem is you can't go around problems. You can't avoid pain and suffering. We have to go through it. We have to embrace it, and we have to deal with it. So there's books for that. One of the books I'd recommend would be Emotional Agility by Dr. Susan David. How do you deal with your feelings? Depression's not good or bad. It just is. When you do that way, it reduces the high emotion, and then you can use your prefrontal cortex to start looking at this and process correctly. James Pennebaker, Expressive Writing, or Writing to Heal. Some of his books show that if you write every day and deal with the problem from the past. I also recommend on YouTube, Patrick Doyle, and on the Dove TV. He's a Christian psychologist. You don't have to be a Christian. I don't care what you do. I mean, don't let your disliking bias get in the way of hearing information that helps you. But he talks about that his father abused him as a kid. He was an alcoholic, beat him up, and he actually researched about how to kill his father because he hated his father so much. It's understandable when someone beats you up and abuses you, you want to get even. You want to see them get their pound of you want your pound of flesh. I don't blame you. I feel the same way too sometimes. However, if that takes root in your heart, it winds up destroying you, and it ruins your future, and it ruins your relationship with your children, your husband or wife, your friends and family. It doesn't help. It feels good. It's not bad to be angry. It's learning how to deal with anger in a healthy way as all these things that need to be talked about. And I'm for helping people deal with some of the stuff that most parents never talked about. How to deal with loss, how to deal with when someone does you wrong. And church doesn't even handle it. Oh, just forgive. Easier said than done. Nobody teaches forgiveness. Teach you how complicated it is, and no one teaches people how to grieve appropriately. People avoid all this stuff and all that stuff. And the reason why I go over this stuff, because it destroys relationships. Several girls that I've dated, and even my own marriage, stuff from the past is in between us. And there is no connection. And we're wired for relationship. One girl I dated, she had bad childhood. And she just kept playing the role of victim. And nothing was ever her fault. It was always somebody else's. And then she was angry at her dad. And then she becomes angry at me. You know what I mean? So that's what happens is it's displaced aggression since she never let it go, and kept ruminating and playing over it. She's brooding upon it and ruminating and brooding. And she'd mention her father, like, I hate him. I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, yo, it's too much. And all that anger, she suppresses it inside. I'm not saying she's a bad person. I'm just saying that she's never dealt with this stuff. And I'm not going to feel sorry for her because pity's not love. I always encouraged her, might want to go back and take a look. Because sometimes, maybe, number one is perfectionism. Maybe her father couldn't give her what she wanted. Okay, so love's not giving you everything you want. Everybody thinks God is like Santa Claus, or love is like Santa Claus. I just give you everything you want. That's not it. What you want is my presence, not presents, gifts and stuff like that. And some people just aren't very good at it. If you're condemning someone else for not being present, I would ask, are you present with me right now, or are you thinking about something else? So don't let your own, sin get in that, you ain't so fucking special either. You know what I mean? Like, and I say that so that way people don't have unrealistic expectations of other people and what they can do. You're not in their own in their world. Where did they come from? What was that like? What was their childhood like? I'm not saying if they abused you that's right. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying you seek to understand that what they did was wrong, and then you can learn from that not being present and not listening can be very harmful to other people, because they want to love and be loved. And even though they're together and there's a lack of communication, you can always learn something. So instead of becoming bitter about what happened to you, learn to become better. God forbid you lose your life and miss out on your family and what's happening right now that is good, because you're focused on what's wrong from the past. Dr. Wood, have a good one.